What you've just heard is one of the many deaths from the monkey, the new major motion picture from Osgood Perkins, Stephen King, and James Wan. Experience it in theaters everywhere this Friday, because everybody dies, and that's life. Let's have some fun.
You found your person. Now let the Knot help you with everything else. The Knot connects you to the wedding inspo, vendors, venues, and planning tools you need to make your day totally you. Having helped plan 25 million weddings, we've got your back when it comes to every little detail like RSVPs, budgets, and more. Because your wedding comes to life with the connections that matter the most. Get started at theknot.com/audio. The Knot. Let's plan your wedding together.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Big Mad True Crime, where we get big mad over true crime. I'm your host, Heather Ashley, and today you'll be hearing part 2 of what happened to Jessica Easterly. Small talk sucks, so let's dive in. Last week, we talked about the patterns of Jessica and Justin's relationship, Justin's criminal record, his effing weird texts, and his lackluster responses to his wife being missing. For more than 8 to 10 days, depending on whose story you believe, no one seemed to be searching for Jessica at all. Her friends and family were a state away, and all Justin could say is that he had people on the ground. On August 22nd, 2019, Jessica's 2 sisters and one of her cousins drove across state lines to New Orleans to talk to the detective about what was being done to find their sister. The 3 of them were early for their meeting, so they decided to take a detour and drive down Jessica Street to see if there was anywhere nearby that was searchable. As they were driving down General High Street, the one that Jessica lived on, her cousin smelled something. It was decomposition. They never in a million years thought Jessica could be this close to her house. They stopped the car, got out, and followed the smell all the way to the end of General High Street, which is a whole 2 blocks away. They then took a left on Kenilworth Street, which runs parallel to the 610 overpass above. Just across the street, on the other side of the overpass, was a big white building. Her sister says it was some kind of water treatment plant. The 3 split up to see if they could find the source of the smell, and one of them did. It was Jessica's sister, Audrey. Along a small tree line behind the water treatment plant, just 2.5 blocks from Jessica's home, she found her sister's body. It was badly decomposed after more than a week of being exposed to the Louisiana summer heat and humidity. According to NOLA.com, she was still wearing a black tank top, black shorts, and black shoes. Audrey knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this was her sister. This area was honestly the only real undeveloped area around. On the other side of the tree line was another residential area, and just across the Orleans Canal, which was only a half a block away from where Jessica was recovered, was a popular city park. If something had happened to Jessica at home or anywhere in the vicinity of her home and someone wanted to hide her body quickly, this was really the only place they could. As soon as Audrey found her sister, she immediately called the police, who came and processed the scene. Dozens of police vehicles showed up, and Audrey made sure that they knew this was her sister. This was Jessica, no one else. But the police had to be sure. It should be noted here that Justin actually voluntarily went down to the police station that day, but what happened or what was said there, no one knows. And those joint adult content Twitter accounts we talked about in the last episode that had been active even after Jessica went missing, went quiet that day. 8 days after Jessica's body was found, someone posted on the Nextdoor app about it. It seemed like virtually no one knew Jessica had even gone missing. I mean, more than a week had passed since she was found, let alone missing, and there were people who lived close by that were just finding out about it. This neighborhood was tight, and they were not happy about how little they knew about something so huge. One of Jessica's neighbors actually went on Web Sleuths and said that her neighborhood was filled with security cameras. In fact, she even noted that there was a neighborhood group where they would share these videos with each other on the off chance someone's car got broken into, which was about the only thing that ever really happened around there. According to a petition started by Audrey, despite the fact that Justin's father, who lived with him at the time, said the last time he saw Jessica was when she was walking out of the house, none of those security cameras showed Jessica leaving the house that day. In the true fashion of this case, time continued to tick by, and it wasn't until September 1st, 10 days after Jessica was found, that the police in Alabama took a buccal swab from Jessica's mother for DNA comparison. Her family's website said that they were told an investigation couldn't begin until there was a positive identification. A body had been found in a tree line 2 blocks from where a woman went missing. Since when do you have to wait for identification to investigate that? And even if that was the case, why take 10 days to get that ball rolling? Regardless, officials in Alabama took the buccal swab and sent it to New Orleans Police Department. How, might you ask? According to Jessica's website, it was sent through the mail. They didn't drive it to the police department to conserve the chain of custody or speed up the process. No, it was sent through the mail. The following day, for the first time in the history of Jessica's disappearance, Justin picked up the phone and called Jessica's parents. That was also the last time he would ever reach out to her family. Jessica's family waited weeks hoping for news that her body had been formally identified so the investigation into her death could finally begin. But that phone call still hadn't come. So they called down to the police department to ask why it was taking so long. And according to Jessica's website, they were told that Jessica's mom's comparison swab had been left on a desk, therefore hadn't been sent to the lab yet. Not only had no one searched for Jessica, after she was found, the one thing they needed to identify her body and actually start the investigation into her death was left on a desk. Throughout October, the family figured, okay, any minute now we're going to hear back from police. But no, instead of DNA results, they had to watch what was once Justin and Jessica's joint adult content Twitter account continue to run at full speed. It wasn't until November 8th that the department finally confirmed what everyone knew all along, that the body found 2.5 blocks from Jessica's house was, in fact, Jessica. Her cause and manner of death had yet to be determined. November passed with no desperate pleas from Justin, but as you'd expect, he continued on with this venture, posting explicit photos and videos of his now deceased wife. And if that made your entire body cringe, the cringe level is about to eat a Mario mushroom and grow 3 sizes. On December 12th, just a couple of weeks before the first Christmas Jessica's family was going to have to spend without her, Justin started a GoFundMe account. But it wasn't under his real name or even Jessica's real name. It was under the aliases Jessica used and Justin still used for his adult content. This is what he wrote. It was from the moment we met, there was nothing stronger than the attraction to each other. Not just in the physical sense, but the emotional binders were incredible. Never before had either of us felt comfortable enough to share our innermost secrets, fears, and few regrets. We were each other's best friends and confidants. I know for a fact that she was my ballast, and it seemed where I was weak, she excelled, and vice versa. Everything we did it together, be it the good, the bad, and all things in between. This was almost 11 years ago, and it did go fast, too fast. In the matter of a blink of an eye, I became a single parent, unemployed, and a crushed widower. Unemployed? You've been using her photos and videos since the day she went missing. But it goes on. If the agony of dealing with the loss of literally my everything comes the sheer panic of how we are going to get past losing my wife and our daughter's mom. We had a business that funded our lives, finally, and it won't work without alias. So now what? You sure as shit tried, but Jessica's family successfully got all of the adult content sites to take the accounts down. He continued by saying, "Let me start by saying thank you for coming this far and how incredibly difficult it is for me to ask for help. We have exhausted all of our options and funds for the moment, and the idea that her remains, are in some strange room at the coroner's office because we don't have the over $4,000 needed just doesn't seem right at all. I want to put it here that there is no fee to have your wife's remains removed from the morgue. There are costs associated with a funeral, but rest assured her family and friends were standing by, ready and willing to take care of those, but alas, Justin wasn't trying to have any contact with them." But let's continue. This campaign is simple in its function and that it is twofold. The first is to get her final resting place and have a small celebration of her life. Second is a fund for our daughter so she is able to keep as close of a life as she did before the loss of her mom. Let's reiterate here that he was having a fundraiser for his daughter under his adult content alias. For someone who has touched so many lives in such profound ways, Alias was very private about her personal battles with fibromyalgia and depressive bipolar 2. She meant the world to myself as well as our 15-year-old daughter, and we're trying to find some rhythm in this life without her in it. Thank you all for helping me. We wouldn't know what to do without the generosity of people like you. Now, you're probably wondering where the Mario mushroom level of disgust comes in, and here it is. According to justiceforjessica.com, Justin also added, "If you donate, you will receive exclusive pics, videos, lingerie, and shoes." For her own funeral costs, he was offering to sell explicit photos and videos of her and gift her lingerie and shoes. There was no mention of the fact that she went missing, let alone was found discarded in a tree line 2 blocks from her house, and no outrage over the lack of progress in her case. In fact, according to Jessica's family, Justin impersonated Jessica and had sexual conversations with other people for months after her death. And while he didn't mention the fact that she went missing or was found dead, he did sit there and drop a supposed diagnosis of bipolar 2, something that no one in her family knew anything about. And even if she did have bipolar 2, what would her being very private about her struggles with it have anything to do with her death? The tone he seemed to be setting seemed, well, you be the judge of that.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
If one fundraiser wasn't enough, shortly after Christmas, Justin thought it best that there be 2. And this time he did it under his and Jessica's actual names. And this one was a little different. This is what he said. "My name is Justin, and I've had the honor of having Jessica as my wife, best friend, and confidant. She has played many different roles, but being my ballast has been the constant. For the past 10 years, it was 11 in the last GoFundMe, we have been together through the best of times and during some of life's most difficult. And now, due to her untimely death, our 15-year-old daughter and myself are asking for your help in fulfilling her final wishes. We are trying our best to navigate this life without her, but finding new challenges and hardships every step of the way. Anyone that has ever met Jessica would agree that she was a giving, loving friend and confidant and would go to the end of the earth to help even someone she had just met. Jessica was without a doubt one of the smartest people I have had the privilege of knowing and was educated in and had a love for people with disabilities and helping them overcome their struggles with everyday life, especially when it came to children with autism, Asperger's, or with a speech or hearing issues. I remember distinctly a story she told me, and over the years a few others, of a hearing implant in a very young child that had been born deaf. She said with tears streaming down her face, the look in this child's eyes and the dramatic expression on his face when he heard his mother's voice for the first time was incredible and touched my soul. Now, it sounds here like Justin's describing a video that went viral a few years ago, albeit a video that would make Chuck Norris cry. Jessica watching it was the one memory he could muster up for her GoFundMe. He continued by saying, Jess went on to receive a BS in audiology and speech pathology and a BS in psychology from the University of Southern Alabama. Unfortunately, her health did not allow her to pursue her career she worked so hard for. Forever the eternal optimist, she forged ahead in a number of ways, but constantly dealing with a misunderstood and even more misdiagnosed physical illness. Years later, Jess was properly diagnosed with a non-common and rapidly advancing type of fibromyalgia. Along with the fibro comes a list of other illnesses or disorders, such as chronic fatigue syndrome, which hit her hard. The other struggle she endured for most of her life was also not diagnosed correctly 11 times: major depressive disorder and depressive bipolar 2. In the last GoFundMe, he only mentioned bipolar 2. Now he's saying she had bipolar 2 and major depressive disorder, neither of which her family nor her friends have ever officially been made aware of. But let's continue. This was so very difficult, combined with the flare-ups of the fibromyalgia, that several times she had to be hospitalized. The largest single concern for her doctors, as well as us as a family, was avoiding both a depressive cycle and a fibromyalgia flare-up at the same time. Unfortunately, this did happen on 3 separate occasions and twice required inpatient treatment. He goes on to say, "That was my wife. Emotionally in 110% from the beginning and with unwavering resolve to the end, even when she felt terrible or was in excruciating pain. Now, here we are, missing her like I've never experienced, with her having lost the fight after one hell of a showing." That was your wife? Your wife was her battle with fibromyalgia and what you say was major depressive disorder and bipolar 2? That was your wife. That is all you want people to know about your wife. And lost the fight? Which fight and how? At that point, her autopsy results nor the cause of her death had been released yet. He ended the second GoFundMe with, "Please help us as a family still. Give her the memorial she so wanted, and for once, Jessica may be at peace and not in pain or struggling to smile in front of all the people she cared so deeply and without limit. If anyone has earned a reprieve, it's Jess, for all of the time she suffered, often in silence, as to not be looked upon as complaining and not be categorized as a victim." Over half of the cost of Jessica's service will be covered by myself, and we are asking for help with the other half. Even a $1 donation can help immensely, so please understand, no donation is too small. Thank you for your attention to this tragedy, especially during the holiday season. Sincerely, Justin and family. Why was he only covering over half? Was there some cap he was willing to pay? Was he just going to leave her in the morgue until someone else came up with the rest? I mean, at that point, her body still hadn't been released yet, so there was still time for him to work and save up money for her arrangements, but he was only paying for over half? Now that we've covered attempt 2 of 3 to raise money, let's get to the third. Jessica's family told Crawlspace that Justin asked another couple in the adult entertainment industry if they would do a charity show to help pay for Jessica's funeral. In that interview, her family said that Justin even offered to fly out and pitch in. Yes, pitch in with the show because he thought this guy's girlfriend was into him. Dude could afford a flight for a sex raiser, but was only covering over half of his wife's funeral arrangements.
Wow.
What's up?
I just bought and financed a car through Carvana in minutes.
You? The person who agonized 4 weeks over whether to paint your walls eggshell or off-white bought and financed a car in minutes?
They made it easy. Transparent terms, customizable down and monthly. Didn't even have to do any paperwork.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Hey, have you checked out that spreadsheet I sent you for our dinner options?
Finance your car with Carvana and experience total control. Financing subject to credit approval.
On January 15th of 2020, the medical examiner finally announced his findings when it came to Jessica's cause and manner of death. Both were listed as undetermined. And while that was frustrating, undetermined meant that it could be changed given sufficient evidence. After the medical examiner came to this conclusion, Jessica's body was finally able to be released to her immediate next of kin, which would have been Justin, but despite all of his fundraising attempts, no one in her family and not a single one of her friends had been contacted about any funeral arrangements. They were terrified that Justin was going to get her body and cremate it. After a little over a week of waiting, Jessica's stepfather drove to New Orleans to find out what police were doing to figure out what happened to his daughter. And I shit you not, according to Jessica's website, her stepfather was told that Jessica's case was now considered cold. If you want to get real offended, let's visit the definition of cold case per our old pal Merriam-Webster. A cold case is defined as a criminal investigation that has stopped being actively pursued because of a lack of evidence. It had been 5 months, and just a little more than a week since the medical examiner's results were released, and it was no longer actively being pursued? For the love of justice, please let this not actually be the case. While that level of bullshit was going on, Justin was busy upping the what the fuck ante. Later that same night, he went to a bar and met a woman named Jessica. She said he was acting crazy and told her that his wife's name was also Jessica and that she had committed suicide. He insisted that Bar Jessica take all of wife Jessica's clothes. Suicide? I'm pretty sure it was undetermined, though I think we all kind of had a feeling that was coming when he defined her by her alleged mental illness in his fundraising attempts. His made-up bullshit about her committing suicide, though, wasn't even the weirdest part of this encounter. Justin handed this woman a folded-up note written on a piece of yellow graph paper. I'll post a picture of it in Jessica's highlight with a swipe-up link to all the other photos on justiceforjessica.org. On the top left-hand side of the note, he wrote Grace, and in parentheses beside it wrote daughter, as if Bar Jessica or whomever he planned on running into that night would need to know his daughter's name. Underneath that, in the center, he wrote his own first and last name, address, cell phone number, landline number, and email address. He then listed all of the purses Jessica owned, Chanel, Marc Jacobs, Burberry, etc. He also listed her shoes, including Christian Louboutin and Jimmy Choo. Next to clothes, he wrote, and I quote, all kinds of shit. He also noted a couple pieces of furniture that he says he just didn't need. A dresser and a cedar chest. If you love to have both of those things processed for evidence, raise your hand. Glad we're all on the same page. After listing her shoes, purses, furniture, and all kinds of shit, he wrote the word questions, as if he needed prompts when it came to running into whoever he planned to see that night. They included, do you like to shoot? And wrote guns beside it. Do you like knives? And wrote tactical beside it. And do you dive or want to learn? Off to the side of those was another question. If you or your husband are into any of this, please let me know. What the fuck even was this? I have never wanted to go to a bar less in my life than at this very moment. Bar Jessica was naturally creeped the fuck out, and her friend recognized Justin as the husband of the woman who'd been found behind the water treatment plant, so that night the police went and picked Justin up and took him to the hospital for observation. He was later released. Just days after Justin's bizarre breakdown in a bar, which he had clearly planned ahead for, more information came out about Jessica's death, more specifically, the injuries to her body. According to her website, Jessica had a fractured nose and jaw, which the medical examiner believes she sustained around the time of her death. She also had a post-mortem disarticulation of the left second rib and her C4 vertebrae, which is the one that's essentially behind your Adam's apple. They believe her nose and jaw were broken around the time of her death and that the rib and spinal cord injuries occurred after she died. According to NOLA.com, her toxicology report simply noted that nothing in her system played a role in her death. There had been all kinds of theories circling Jessica's case because of the amount of time without a listed person of interest or suspect and the lack of really any updates in this case at all. Some assumed that the police and media were being quiet because it was a suicide, and it certainly seemed like Justin was perpetuating that, but no one else who knew Jessica believed she would have ever done that. Not only did they not believe she would have done it to herself, they don't believe she would have done that to Grace. But let's say she did. If you believe Jessica committed suicide, you'd also have to believe that she somehow broke her nose and jaw beforehand, walked to a tree line down the street by her house, and somehow died. But not by anything she ingested and not with anything that could be found, let alone determined. At this point, I suppose law enforcement changed their minds or had previously misspoke about this being a cold case because a few days later, NOPD made a plea to the public asking that anyone with information about Jessica's death please contact them. Come February, both of Justin's GoFundMe accounts for her funeral arrangements were taken down, which comes as no surprise considering he still hadn't come to get her body from the morgue. Jessica's family was devastated that she was just laying there and they had no rights because they weren't her direct next of kin. In March of 2020, Audrey got a phone call. It was from someone in Jessica's neighborhood who was out taking a walk. They'd stumbled across Jessica's ID and a blanket in the grassy area between the water treatment plant and the tree line she was found in. This was 7 months after she had been found. Justin had told Maria that Jessica's ID was still at the house. Now, that being said, this was an identification card and not a driver's license, so maybe there's some wiggle room there, but why would that one card be out there if her keys, money, and possibly other ID was still at the house when she went missing? And why would a blanket be out there? She went missing in the middle of a Louisiana summer wearing a tank top and shorts. It seemed pretty unlikely that she would have walked out there on her own with a blanket. Once again, Audrey immediately called the detective on Jessica's case and told them what the couple had found and says that she was told he'd contact them about where they found the items. By April, she still hadn't heard back about what police were doing with the ID and blanket, so she called the couple who found it, hoping for an update. According to Jessica's website, the detective had yet to reach out to them. At this point, Audra filed a formal complaint with the Public Integrity Bureau for failing to properly investigate Jessica's death, and an investigation was opened. A few weeks after that, the detective finally called the couple who found Jessica's ID and blanket, though no one has reported seeing any kind of police presence where they were found. On August 1st, 2020, almost a year after Jessica went missing and seemingly no movement in her case, Maria decided to give the public a glimpse into what life was like in Jessica and Justin's household. She posted to Facebook saying that a year prior, in 2019, Jessica called her saying that Grace had threatened to kill herself over a broken cell phone and that Justin had committed her to a mental health facility. Maria went on to say that it wasn't until months later that she realized that was only a fraction of the story. According to Maria, Jessica and Justin had been having violent fights throughout the day the last 2 days of July in 2019, and Grace had called her sister multiple times to come and rescue her from the situation. Her sister was on vacation in Seattle at the time, so all she could do was have a friend come and pick her up. Maria says that when the friend showed up, Grace was told that she couldn't leave. And when her sister came back into town from Seattle and tried to check on Grace, she was told that she'd been checked into a mental health facility. In Maria's post, she said she felt like Grace was being taught the hard way not to reach out for help when things got violent in the home. For what it's worth, Maria also says that when Jessica went missing, Justin was telling people that she had probably just checked into a mental health facility. September of 2020 came and went, and in October, with Jessica still lying in the morgue unclaimed, the investigation into Jessica's death finally seemed to take off.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now boarding Group A. Please have your boarding passes ready to scan. If your phone is cracked, old, or was chewed up by your Chihuahua travel companion, please refrain from holding up the line. Instead, go to Verizon and trade in any phone in any condition from one of their top brands for the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus with Galaxy AI, and a watch and tab on any plan. Only on Verizon.
With new line on my plan. Service plan required for watch and tab. Additional terms apply. See Verizon.com for details.
According to Maria, NOPD went to Jessica's house to ask a few questions, but were turned away without any answers. Her family has since been told that he refuses to speak with authorities without an attorney present, and according to a petition Audrey started, an attorney has yet to reach out to them. Shocking, I know. And while that last shocking was clearly sarcastic, what happened next actually was shocking. After law enforcement left Jessica's house, Justin decided that that was the time to get rid of a futon and a headboard, and took them to the street for trash pickup. There's no legal expectation of privacy when an item is taken to the curb for disposal. If your intent is to get rid of a piece of property and show that you're no longer in any way trying to reserve it for safekeeping, it's fair game. So, police rolled out with their CSI van and processed it while it was still sitting outside the house. They took samples from both the futon and the headboard. All anyone had to do now was wait for any kind of results. While Jessica's family waited, on December 5th, Justin was arrested, but not for anything that had to do with Jessica. According to arrest.org, he was charged in Mississippi with operation of motor vehicle while under influence of liquor, drugs, or a controlled substance, no license, seatbelt violation, and uninsured motorist first offense. His mugshot looked like a stark contrast from the Justin and Jessica's Facebook photos. 2 more months passed, and in February of this year, 2021, after Justin failed to make contact within the required amount of time, Jessica's body was finally released to her family. They were able to hold a small ceremony for her to say their goodbyes and plan on having a celebration of life for her in the future when it's safe to do so. Jessica's family has yet to hear anything about the results of the swabs taken from the futon and the headboard in October of 2020, and as of today, her manner of death is still listed as undetermined. Her sister Audrey recently started a petition with the goal of having the DA investigate Jessica's death. It has since received more than 74,000 signatures, and it worked. WDSU reports that the DA made a statement that he's committed to re-examining Jessica's case with fresh eyes and revisiting all the facts and evidence involved, which is a bold statement to make to the public. He's not only holding himself accountable, but he's allowing the public to hold him accountable as well. And just last month, Jessica's family met with the DA, and while they can't say much about what they discussed, justice for Jessica seems closer than ever. If you know anything about the death of Jessica Easterly, please contact Crime Stoppers at 504-822-1111. That's 504-822-1111. You can also submit an anonymous tip on their website at crimestoppersgno.org. For all photos pertaining to this case and a link to that petition, check out Jessica's highlight at the top of my Instagram profile at @TheHeatherAshley, and join me there Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, where you go live with me and we talk about her case. If you like your podcast ad-free, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/BigMadTrueCrime, where for just $1 whole a month, your episodes are totally ad-free. If you need more episodes in your life, for just $5 a month, you get a bonus episode on the first Monday of every month. All your episodes are ad-free, and you'll also receive a forever discount code for all Big Mad True Crime merch. And of course, anytime you sign up, you get instant access to all previous bonus episodes. I'll be bringing you a brand new case a week from today, and I cannot wait. But until then, we out.